If you want to learn about horse photography, how to do it and do it well, you're in the right place. It's a pleasure to introduce horse photographer Phyllis Burchett. Welcome, Phyllis.
Hey, Kirby. It's an honor to be here. Thank you so much for having me. I've enjoyed listening to your podcast, and you certainly have had some wonderful guests.
Well, thank you. I love your photos, so I was happy that we were able to get together.
Yeah, this is great. Thank you.
So you've had a long relationship with horses, both managing them and training them and now photographing them. So how did you get started in horse photography and why?
Well, as you said, I used to be a professional horse trainer, and we had amateur and youth clients that I prepared horses for, along with showing open events. My ex-husband and I also owned and managed a very large equine breeding operation where I handled most all aspects of stallion management, artificial insemination, shipping cooled semen. And we also foaled out around 50 mares each year, which got to be quite stressful.
Yeah,
and so I took a trip to Canada one year and did a hiking camping trip. And our guide had a well, it wasn't a DSLR, it was a film camera back then, SLR. And I just got the photography bug and came home and bought a camera, and it was a great escape for me. But when I first got into photography, I really didn't want to shoot horses because I was so burnt out with them. I shot mostly wildlife and landscape. And I think, as I told you before, my very best selling art image is a bear, not a horse, which is people don't expect.
Okay, so what's different about horse photography versus landscapes or wildlife?
Oh gosh, well, of course, I've come full circle back to what I know and love, which is, in my passion is horses. But there's so many different aspects of horse photography. You got portrait work where you capture the horse and human connection. You've got sales and advertising where you want the animal's conformation to shine and look the very best for your client. You got product photography that you might do for a commercial client, event photography, which would include horse shows and rodeos and clinics, photographing horses at liberty, which is horses running free. There's so many different breeds and breed standards that you should know if you choose to become an equine photographer. Of course, wild horse photography is really popular too. You can get some really dramatic photos if you're patient enough to sit and observe wild horses. But I love whether they're domestic or wild horses, I love just being able to sit and observe their behavior and just sit in a field and where it's quiet and just to, enjoy nature and the horses eating, and because they do spend a lot of time grazing.
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to comment about wild horses. Most of the time they're eating, and
Yeah.
those dramatic shots are pretty rare and few between for me, at least.
And you have to, if you'll be there more in the springtime when it's foaling season, or when they're breeding back, when the mares are coming back into heat and the stallions are trying to get their herds together, or they already have the herds together, but they're trying to maintain their herds, their bands. And if you're there early mornings, don't be there when it's hot, because they're not going to be very active. But I think the springtime is a really good time of year to try to go photograph the wild horses when there's more activity.
Good to know.
Yeah.
So what makes a great horse photograph, would you say?
Wow. There's a lot.
Yeah.
First off, is having the right focal length, is using a telephoto lens that starts at about 135 at a minimum will eliminate the distortion of of a horse and and the equine form. If you're using anything any wider than that, be sure to have some distance between you and the horse, especially if you'd like to show some of their environment, which I love environmental images. Especially if you have beautiful scenery and background of mountains and things like that out west. Of course, we have wild horses back in the east too, on the North Carolina, Georgia coast, some in Florida, some in Virginia. But any kind of image that you can capture equine behavior, interaction in your images, action shots of them running, groups of horses is even better, stellar if you can get groups of horses. Of course, the right subject all make for great imagery. As an equine photographer, you always want to represent the animal in the best way possible. The correct moment in their stride is important. A horse that looks comfortable with his ears up and alert is good. Getting down low or eye level is preferred. Of course, like any other type of photography, it's all about the background. You want to have a beautiful background, separation between your subject and the background. You don't want anything that's distracting from your subject, which is the same thing with any kind of photography, really. Of course, our favorite time to photograph is, like with any kind of landscape photography, is the morning or afternoon, where you have late afternoon, where you have that beautiful soft golden light, depending on your subject, to have them front lit or even backlit. And I think the biggest thing for me when I say is helping someone that's wanting to get started on horse photography is to know your subject, to learn more about your subject before you just strike out and start shooting them. And that lots of patience and practice is really key. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think understanding horse behavior certainly has to be one of those things that is key to getting good photographs.
Yeah, definitely. And domestic horses are going to act a little, they still have that herd mentality. So they'll still have a few of the same instincts and behaviors that a wild horse will, but just knowing where to stand and the right angles and a lot of that you'll learn just from doing it and getting out in the field and shooting, which is, I tell everybody, just go do it. That's the best way to learn.
Yeah. True of any type of photography, I suppose.
Yes, for sure. Yeah.
Especially horses and wildlife, I think.
Mm-hmm. And shooting wild horses is not really any different than shooting wildlife. It might be maybe a little bit easier to get to, especially in some of the Bureau of Land, the BLM land out west. Of course, there's a lot of controversy around the wild horses right now with some of the gathers they're doing. I won't get into the politics of it, but hopefully we will still have wild horses for a long time in nature and out in the wild, and they'll be able to live that way for a long time, because there is a lot of them in holding pens right now. So,
yeah, we could do a whole show on that, I think.
Yeah, we won't get into that.
So one of the things you do is custom photos for your clients. How do you go about doing that, setting them up, and so
I don't
forth?
I don't do as much as I used to, because I'm focusing more on my art and my workshops and tours right now. But I still have some older clients that I still do shoots for. And of course, when somebody calls me or contacts me that they want to do a shoot, we'll do a Zoom chat or a call first to determine what they do want. What's their goal for the images from their session? Is it to have fine art to hang in their homes or businesses, or do they need sale images of a horse or advertising for a stallion for breeding purposes? Maybe it's a professional looking for branding shots for their business. It's important to understand what the client wishes to do with their final product. So I usually go to their location and choose the best location on their farm or ranch or wherever for the desired background and the light. And then sometimes we do black background portraits too, which is really nice. We'll set up we'll try to find a barn that has turn off all the lights and have a dark hallway of the barn where we can put the horse and if there's a person in the that's going to be in the picture with the horses. That way we'll have that nice black background. I don't normally get to haul a black background around with me. Sometimes I do if I'm here in Georgia, but if I'm on the road, we try to find a hallway, a dark hallway to put them in, and then we'll adjust it in Photoshop with levels and stuff to try to get the background black, and it'll really make that subject pop off the black background. So a lot of customers really love that look.
So in that case, do you have to use flash or just a high ISO?
It's really not. You try to keep them in the hallway where it's nice, even light. You don't want the sun on them, but if it's a good day, like if it's not real cloudy, you'll still have a good bit of ambient light that'll be filtering in there that will illuminate your subject without having to use lights. But you can use lights. I just most of the time don't. But I do have ProPhoto lights that I use on location a lot of times. I've taken them out west with me.
Okay. Sounds like you need a good understanding of lighting as well as everything else, huh?
Well, I think that all photographers need a good understanding of light. So that's what we're doing. We're painting with light, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
So what is it about ranch horses, cowgirls, and cowboys that interests you?
Oh, wow. That's a big subject too. I just absolutely adore and love the Western way of life. The ranchers have such a deep love for the land and the animals, and they don't do the job they're doing for money because they're not making a lot of money. They do it because they love ranching and they love the land that they're on and the animals. And I have personally loved horses all my life since I was a kid, but coming from the show horse world, early on, when I was getting out of the business of horses, I did some backcountry trips years ago into Yellowstone and the Lee Metcalf Wilderness in Montana on horseback to do some photography. And I really got a big appreciation for the tough horses and the pack mules. They were such a different breed than what I had been used to being around. And so now getting to see firsthand the job that the ranch horse does, it really instilled a huge appreciation for me for these horses and the lifestyle. So I love cowboys and cowgirls and because they have, it's just the Western way of life. And I want to maintain and to promote that way of life through my photography.
Yeah, I think you've succeeded in that, all right.
Well, thank you. Thanks.
So you talked a little bit about gear before, but why don't you talk a little bit more about that? What cameras and lenses you use and why?
Well, I'm a Nikon shooter. I started out with Nikon, and I obviously got a lot of money invested in it. So I've stayed as a Nikon shooter, although I have to admit when Canon came out with their R5 and Nikon was kind of falling a little bit behind, I was very tempted to make the switch, but I hung in there and waited. And I'm glad I did because right now I have gone mirrorless. So I'm a little bit overrun with gear. I still have 3 DSLRs and 2 mirrorless cameras. I just got, back in December, I got the Nikon, the Z9, and then I've been learning videography with the Z6 too. So I'm excited to add videography into my repertoire as something to add on to when I can do some promotional work. And I think it's the wave of the future or has been. I think 10, 12 years ago, I had somebody at a conference tell everybody that if you didn't know video, you were getting left behind. And now it's 10 years later, I'm finally starting to learn it.
It's a whole different field and a whole different knowledge base, that's for sure. Well, let's take a look at some of your photos.
That was taken on the Dry Head Ranch. We do a retreat there every July, photography retreat. And we basically just kind of immerse ourselves into the ranch lifestyle for the week. They have a great family there. It's a 4 or 5 generation ranch tucked away on the Crow Indian Reservation in the Pryor Mountains. It's an absolutely gorgeous ranch. It takes you, it's about 4 hours south of Billings, Montana. You actually go through Wyoming to get there, which sounds weird, but it's just a really gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous landscape, and the scenery there is beautiful. The family is wonderful. This is Jake. They have a big, what we call cavy or herd of ranch horses that they bring in every morning, and they put them in the corrals where they can use them during the day, and then they push them back out in the evening. So this is a picture taken in the morning. It's a sunrise picture of Jake with a bullwhip. And when we say the bullwhip, they don't actually whip the horses. It just makes a cracking sound and drives the horses a little bit further. So this is just a picture of Jake cracking his bullwhip and driving the horses across the ridge back to the corrals. I can say that anytime you're shooting horses running like this, you need at least a minimum of 1/1000th on the shutter speed. I'm just guessing I was at least 5.6 on my aperture, to try to get a little bit more depth of field. But of course, they were kind of all on the same plane for me, but I may have been as high as f8. I don't know, but definitely the shutter speed is the biggest thing here to stop that motion as they're running.
Right. Yeah. And very nice sunset helps as well.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Sometimes we get lucky, don't we?
Yeah. Yeah. Not often enough, but yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess if it was easy, everybody would do it, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So let me pull up the next one here.
This is one of Jake. This is Jake and Jesse's youngest child at the Dry Head Ranch. Oh wow. Now I'm having a brain, my brain's leaving me. But these kids, I mean, they go out and they do the ranch, and I think one of the pictures I included is of him in the branding pen doing some roping. I think he was around 6 or 7 in this picture, and they love what they do. There's nothing better than ranch kids. I tell you what, because they're not on social media all day. They don't have iPads or phones on their hips. They're just out doing what kids do and playing in the creeks and having a good time. So this little mare's name is Sam. She's kind of a large pony, and he was having a big time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Evident by the expression on his face.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love this one too. He looks like he's definitely having a great time.
Yeah. Always having a good time. They're a big source of entertainment for us at the ranch. So yeah, those kids are, they're a big plus to have to get to shoot, and every one of them knows how to rope. So.
Wow. Know how to rope at 6?
Yep. Oh yeah. They start roping earlier than that.
Oh, wow. I had no idea.
Yep. And again, here the shutter speed was important too, just to capture that, to stop action. Cause I'm not doing panning. I am panning with my subject, but I'm trying to stop the motion of them running and get that joy on his face, and I wanted it sharp. So I'm sure it was probably at least 1,000, maybe 12/50th on the shutter speed.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. This was taken at the Powderhorn Ranch in Wyoming, and this is one of the True Girls. They own the ranch. I think this is one of the granddaughters. I think there's like 7 or 8 granddaughters, and they oh wow, it's just such a great ranch to go to. And they do have cattle, but we don't really ever see the cattle. Our main focus is their horse breeding operation, because they have along with they do a big sale. It's called the Diamond McNabb sale every year. So they these are one of the this is one of the horses, the ranch horses. They ranch them. They use them. I'm sorry. They use them on the ranch, and they get them broke, and they don't sell a horse that's not suitable for ranching and good broke and quiet and everything. So, but this was her just crossing one of the creeks, and she was really, you can see she was happy. She's always happy. So it was just a really beautiful shot. I loved it because it looked like the horse was pushing his nose up out of the water too.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. There's lots to like about this one too, with the motion of the water and the horse and
the reflection.
the
Yeah.
Yeah, reflection, exactly.
Yeah. And here you can see the horse's ears are up. I think in the previous shot, probably when the horses are running, sometimes they won't always have their ears up, but that's what helps to make this shot, I think, successful too, is of course the look on her face, the alert look on the horse with his ears up. He looks like he's actually enjoying what he's doing. This is again at the Dry Head Ranch, and this is the same gentleman that was running across the ridge in silhouette. This is Jake at the Dry Head, and he is just an amazing horseman and rancher and cattleman, and again, this is successful because we got dust, we got atmosphere, we got horse that's looking alert. Jake's holding a bullwhip. He's not using it. He's just holding it. It's just, I love this shot because and having the background, the soft background with the horses out of focus and the background is really nice. So, again, I'm sure it was probably around 5.6 on the aperture, 1,000 or more on the shutter speed.
Yeah. And
having his chinks, the fringe on his chinks kind of flying, and the rope, I mean, you can see motion in it, even though it's an action shot that's froze the action. You can still see the motion.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Horse's right front hoof is up, and
yeah, and that's another thing when you're photographing horses, you want to catch them in the best stride. So, and if you'll look at this image, the horse is driving from his back end, I'm sorry, and his front end is lifted up a little bit. So that's a good stride on him to catch.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's lots of action in there, even though it's a still image. And the horse looks very alert, and as you say, the ears are up, and this comes together really well.
Yeah. I love his denim jacket too. So
yeah.
And Jake's a great subject. I mean, he's the iconic cowboy. Yeah,
tell that by looking at him. Another great shot.
Yeah, thank you. It's a great ranch. I love this ranch. I love all ranches. So. Oh, that one. Okay. That was actually taken at the Hideout guest ranch in Wyoming. That was a winter shot. And that's one of my really good, great selling art images as well. Because you've got interaction between these two horses, and I call it eye to eye. And I love doing high key black and white images. And this is just another example of the thing I love to do there. I think my high key black and white images are probably my best sellers. And this, like you said, this shows a lot of emotion here. So it was a good seller at Valentine's Day. And, but it's just a really beautiful image. I have to admit, I love it a lot myself, but it was taken. These horses were actually, they were feeding off a wagon. They were feeding alfalfa, and they were actually eating together, and had just they were had their noses down eating, and had raised up at the same time. And I just happened to get lucky and capture that moment where they looked eye to eye with each other.
Right. Yeah.
So that's just another example of always being ready.
Yeah, exactly. Great composition and light, and
It was nice. Of course, it was in the winter, so it's nice, even light. We didn't have a lot of light at all, really. But it was nice, even light, which is, I think, if I can't, I prefer to have nice, even light over very contrasty, spotty light. So
sure. Probably get a little reflection of the light off the snow as well, huh?
Sure. Yeah. It acts like a bouncer for the reflecting some light into their faces for sure. Yes. Yeah. And this is actually was taken at the Powderhorn Ranch. Is one of their horses that they were going to be offering for sale. And this gal, Kristen, she is actually the granddaughter of the people that own of the family at the Dryhead Ranch, but she was working at the Powderhorn the year we met her. And she just jumped off and was giving this little mare a hug. And I just happened to be lucky and captured this shot of her. And I just love it because even though I know who it is, it's kind of a generic shot in a way because you don't see her face. So this has been a really big seller for me too, because a lot of people love it because it could be anybody, since you can't really see the face. It could be anybody that they know, and it's a cowgirl, and I love to shoot cowgirls, and this little mare is just so cute, and she's obviously got her ears up and looks real pleasant, and she looks like she's enjoying the moment too.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Okay. I think we got one more left here.
Oh, that's a horse of a different color, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, this is actually I was on a photography tour in Lake Clark National Park years ago, and it was my last morning, I think the last morning or maybe the next to last morning, and I had just told the guide, I said, there's one image I'd really like to get. And we were waiting. Of course, the bears were there waiting on the salmon to run, and there wasn't a lot of salmon running. It was late August, and it was kind of a dry run for salmon. So this sow had laid down on the bank, and she was, it just amazes me how they can appear to be sound asleep, and then they could hear a salmon jump and immediately be up and running. Excuse me. But she had just taken a break and laid down, and because I had just told my guide, like, probably 15 minutes before this happened, that this is one image I'd really like to be able to get eye level with a bear laying down, looking like she's asleep. And I'll be darned if about 15 minutes after I put that out to the universe, she laid down and just took a little siesta, and I got the shot. I did have my 600 F4 with me, of course. And she was on the other side. Like the stream running through there that they come into the inlet there. And I got the shot I wanted. And it actually is my very best selling image because I'm licensed with a big publisher that does they're actually the world's largest reseller of home decor. So it's been a big, this bear, she has paid for that trip probably 5 times over. So she's been a really good one for me. Yep.
So how far away were you?
Really not that. I mean, I had, like I said, she filled this. This is not a crop. This is a full. I mean, I did crop it to make it a pano image, but she filled the frame pretty much with my 600. So I'm not very good with distances, but she wasn't very far away.
Yeah. And you were down on the ground, though.
Because I was further away, she was kind of on a little bit of a rise, and I was able to just lower my tripod and still be eye level with her. Because it was the bank she was on was a little bit higher than where I was. So I did lower my tripod and was able to get eye level with her.
Great. Yeah. That makes a shot for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I think turning it to sepia tones really works too, better than leaving it color. So it makes it a little bit more graphic.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree. I like that a lot. So one of the things I wanted to talk to you about is how to avoid the cliches of horse photography.
Well, I have such a large library of fine art equine images that doing something unique is really hard. Most of it has been done before. My images are everything from large herds of ranch horses to white horses of the Camargue in France. I do host an equine photo tour to Iceland every June. So there are lots of different types of horses in my portfolio. Like we've talked about, I do love high key images, which is probably one of my biggest sellers when it comes to my art. Any image that evokes emotion from the viewer, and environmental images of an horse in a beautiful landscape with stunning light. These are always really good sellers. I'm headed to Canada later this year for Horses at Liberty in fall color, so I'm really looking forward to that. But I think some things that are just kind of done over and over again are eye images, which I don't know if there's really a new way to do an eye image, but we all love horses' eyes. So I guess it never really gets old, but there's just so many ways to shoot horses and different environments and different kinds of horses that I don't know that it ever gets old.
Well, you do a good job of capturing interaction between the horses and the riders, and I think that is what I like about your photography in general, and apparently what sells well. So,
well, thank you, Kirby.
So
it's a labor of love. I love. I think anytime you can. I love horses, and then you can add beautiful scenery, and I love landscape. So if you can add all that together, boy, it's you got a winning shot, especially with some stunning stellar light thrown in. So. Right.
Yep. How much of your year do you spend in the field?
Ooh, this year I'm spending a lot. Yeah. I think we're all anxious to get back on the road after the pandemic. And right. I mean, the only thing that stopped for me during the pandemic was my Iceland trips, of course. I will be going back to Iceland in June for the first time since 2019, I guess. So I'm really excited about that. I'm doing the Great American Horse Drive in Colorado, which is open to everyone. It's not just something that, for me. It's the equinephotographers.net host. They will host, they do a workshop, and then the Great American Horse Drive right after that is in near Craig, Colorado. So that's something that if anybody wants some info on, I can get it for them. I'm going back to Montana in April. No, I'm sorry, in May. I'll be doing the Buck and Horse Sale in Miles City. I'm going to do a branding in South Dakota. Then, of course, we're going back to the Dry Head Ranch. I'll be going back to the Powderhorn Ranch. We got a new event that I'm doing with the two other girls that we've started a group called Cowgirls with Cameras. And our first official event that we're hosting with Cowgirls with Cameras will be at the Cottonwood Ranch in Nevada, the end of August. So I'm excited about that one. It's going to be a great experience for everyone, and at a ranch that's not had a ton of photography done at it. So I'm really excited about that one. So yeah, I've got a really full, busy year.
Yeah, sounds like
and I'll
it.
be going to Canada later in the year too. So I'm excited about that one. But yeah.
Lots of time on the road, sounds like.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard because I love to travel, but I love being at home too. So
yeah, understand that one. So where can people find more about you, your workshops, and your photos?
Well, my website is phyllisburchettphoto.net. Be sure it's .net, not .com. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram at Phyllis Burchett Photo, and that's no spaces, just Phyllis Burchett Photo. It's BURCHETT Photo. And like I said, the new endeavor I have with a couple of friends and colleagues is called Cowgirls with Cameras, and that's cowgirlswithcameras.com. But most of my work on Instagram is all ranch photography. My Facebook business page has a little bit more diverse. Like we just did a workshop in Florida with Gypsy Vanners. So with my colleague from Florida. We do a Horses on the Beach workshop in St. Augustine every January, February, depending on the tide schedule. We usually try to schedule it for early in the year. And then this Gypsy Banner was our first time at that ranch in Florida, and it was great. We had to work around some bad weather forecast, but we got it done. So yes, Facebook is going to be a little bit more diverse work with all kinds of different breeds of horses. And then my Instagram is mostly ranch.
Okay. Well, thanks for sharing your time and your expertise in horse photography, Phyllis. It's been great fun, and I've learned a lot for sure, and I've certainly enjoyed seeing your photos. So glad we could get together.
Yes. Thank you, Kirby. I really enjoyed it, and thank you for having me.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Okay.
Each episode of Photographing the West is published on the 15th and 30th of the month. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you back in a couple of weeks. Bye for now.